All right, today we're talking about a new AI model called INTELLECT-3. And look, its performance is seriously impressive, but that's not actually the real story here. The real breakthrough is how they built it, using what they're calling a complete end-to-end AI factory. And maybe the most exciting part of all, they've open sourced the entire recipe for everyone to use. So yeah, let's get into it. And this really gets to the heart of a huge question that's been hanging over the open source community for a while now. You've got these massive billion-dollar AI labs with basically unlimited resources. So how can independent researchers or smaller teams, how can they ever hope to compete or even just keep up with that kind of pace? So to answer that, we've got to first dig into what the real challenge is. And trust me, it's not just about not having enough GPUs. The problem goes way, way deeper than that. Okay, here's the absolute crux of the issue. A lot of these big labs, they'll release their final trained models. That's great. But the incredibly complex proprietary tools they use to build them, that stays locked behind closed doors. You know, it's like someone hands you the keys to a brand new sports car, but you have zero access to the factory that built it, no blueprints, no idea how the assembly line works. What can you really do with that? And this just creates huge roadblocks for everyone else. The open source tools that are out there are often, kind of clunky, really hard to scale, and they don't always play nice with each other. And what does that do? Well, it slows down research, it makes it really tough for new people to jump in, and you end up with this totally fragmented ecosystem where everyone's basically reinventing the wheel over and over again. So the team behind INTELLECT-3 looked at all this and decided to tackle the problem head on. And their big insight was brilliant. They said, forget just building another model. Let's build the factory first. A complete, open-source system that lets anyone create top-tier AI right from scratch. And this really lays out the two different worlds, right? The old way is this messy, fragmented pile of tools you have to somehow stitch together and pray that they work. But the AI factory, it's totally different. It was designed from day one to be a single, unified system that's modular, scalable, and just works. So let's look under the hood. This is the core architecture. They call it a disaggregated system, which is just a fancy way of saying that every piece has its own specific job, and they're not all tangled up together. It really is like a factory. You've got the trainer, that's your heavy machinery, the thing that's actually shaping the AI by updating its programming. Then you've got the inference service. Think of this as like quality control on the assembly line, constantly testing out new ideas. And pulling it all together is the orchestrator, who's basically the factory foreman, making sure everything is running smoothly and in sync. Now, at the very heart of this factory is the engine, and it's called Prime RL. It's built for something called asynchronous reinforcement learning. All that really means is the model can do two things at once. It can learn from new information while at the same time it's creating new practice problems for itself. It's kind of like a student who's reading a textbook and writing their own flashcards at the same time. It's just a super, super efficient way to learn. Okay, so every good factory needs a quality control department, right? That's exactly what the Verifiers and Environments Hub is for. You can think of these as standardized obstacle courses or stress tests for the AI. It gives everyone a consistent way to challenge the model on all sorts of tasks, from complex math to coding. And the best part is, it's a hub, so anyone in the community can design and contribute new tests. But what happens when the AI needs to practice coding? You can't just let it run wild. You need a safe place for it to experiment. And that's exactly what Prime Sandboxes are. They're these secure, totally isolated playgrounds where the model can write and run code to figure out problems without any risk of messing anything else up. And it's built to handle thousands of these at the same time, which is just essential if you want to train at a massive scale. So, okay, they built this incredible state-of-the-art AI factory. The big question is, does it actually work? Well, the proof is in the pudding, or in this case, the very first model to roll off that assembly line, INTELLECT-3. And boom, let's just start with the headline number because it's a big one. On the AME 2024 benchmark, which is a notoriously difficult math competition, INTELLECT-3 scored a whopping 90.8%. I mean, that score alone puts it right up there in the top tier of reasoning models, period. But it gets even better. See, INTELLECT-3 is a 12 billion parameter model. That's pretty big, but not huge by today's standards. And yet it consistently wipes the floor with models that are more than 6 times its size on critical reasoning and coding benchmarks. This thing is seriously punching above its weight. So how'd they pull that off? Well, it all goes back to that factory assembly line. It's a three-step process. First, they did supervised fine-tuning, SFT, to give the model its basic reasoning abilities. Then, they did another round of SFT, but this time they focused on teaching it how to use tools, to be an agent. And for the final step, they unleashed reinforcement learning, which basically lets the model just practice over and over again, teaching itself how to get better.
And this right here is the factory in action. You're looking at the model's performance during that final reinforcement learning stage. And what do you see? A clear, steady, upward climb on every single benchmark. The assembly line isn't just churning out the same thing. It's actively making the model smarter and more capable with every single pass.
Okay, so a new, really powerful AI model is always cool news. But the release of INTELLECT-3 and this whole AI factory, this is something much, much bigger. This has huge implications for the entire open source community. And this quote from their paper just says it all. Their goal was never just to show off a cool model they built. It was about lowering the barriers so that anyone can train and build powerful models for their own custom tasks. This is about real democratization of top-tier AI development.
So what exactly are they open sourcing? I mean, what do you actually get? Well, you get the INTELLECT-3 model, of course, but you also get the Prime RL training framework, the engine of the factory. You get the full training recipe, every single step documented, and you get all the environments and tests they used. Like we said at the beginning, they didn't just give us the car, they handed over the keys to the entire factory.
And that just leaves us with this one huge, exciting question. For the very first time, the open source community doesn't just have another powerful model to play with. It has the whole state-of-the-art assembly line. So the question isn't, how can we catch up anymore? The question now is, if everyone has the keys to the AI factory, what gets built next?